Why don't I stand? I could be standing. Hello everybody, Adam Savage in my cave here in San Francisco, and I am answering questions submitted from tested patrons about my days on Mythbusters. And today's question comes from Thomas Caldwell. Thomas wants to know, what would you consider the most important myth you busted, the one with the most real impact that made a difference? There are a few contenders for this, in my humble opinion. And there are several categories to the answering of this question. The first category that comes to my mind is to highlight what I think of as Mythbusters' greatest methodologies. I'm the first one to admit that our iterations of experiments were painfully low, and that it is cheeky for us to claim after most of our experiments that we had definitively determined the answer. We had determined an answer, not the answer. But despite the fact that we understood those were the limitations of the time, money, and budget that we had, money and budget are the same line item. Anyway, we really tried to take it as, we tried to put our ethos into the methodology. That is, while we understood our answers might not be definitive, we always strove to conduct methodologies that we considered were robust enough to determine the answer if we had enough runs. I think our airplane boarding episode is a perfect example of an amazing amount of infrastructure brought to bear to answer a question. Our producer, Yvette Solis, became Mythbusters' homegrown expert in wrangling gigantic crowds. And that was a story that we were only able to, like, when we did the Archimedes death ray for the Obama administration, that was the first time we'd ever had more than like 40 people participate in a story. And it was 500 kids. And that was so intense, but also so successful as a shoot day that it led to this whole new era. And so things like the zombie episode, the 2 or 3 different zombie episodes we did, and other ones that required large crowds like grocery shopping. Yvette was the lead on those things. And airplane boarding was a phenomenal experimental methodology, I believe. And I'm really proud of that one. But is it the most important? No. I think one of the best methodologies that anybody came up with in the 13 years of the show is Carrie, Tori, and Grant's PP ice cube falling off the plane into somebody's house. Oh my God, that's an amazing execution. You could talk about it in terms of lives being saved. And in that regard, Mythbusters has a pretty interesting record. When we did, in our very first season, we did talking on a cell phone caused an explosion at a gas station. We highlighted the fact that static electricity can, if you're not moving in correct ways, can cause fires at a gas station. And before we aired our episode, back in the early aughts, I think the number we got from the American Petroleum Institute, a slightly biased institution, as you would imagine, but they told us that about 8 people a year died in gas station fires caused by static electricity. In the years after Mythbusters, that number dropped to like 1 or 2, which is pretty cool. But I don't think even that's the most amount of lives that we've saved. We've gotten at least 5 or 6 different people that claim that our show about surviving in an underwater car, we did 2 episodes about it, that the underwater car episodes saved their lives. There's a policeman and his partner in Northern Europe. There's a trucker down in San Diego, a Midwestern mom. At least, I think actually there's 2 Midwestern moms. But does that make it the most important story? I mean, those are really amazing things that happened that we never expected. But is that the most important story? Because to me, the most important story, how do I say this? Like, my goal would be that the most important one is the one that imparted the best information that people could really understand. And I think for that, it's our flu episode. I really do. I think that's one of the most lovely experimental methodologies we ever did, based on some studies that had been done about transmission of cold virus via touching stuff at dinner. And I built a pair of glasses that leaked a fluorescing fluid. And finding a fluid that could fluoresce, that wasn't poisonous to me, that could fluoresce really well, was not easy. And then we had this dinner party. And at the end of so basically, I had this a postnasal drip, right? It was a fluorescing fluid, though, and it came off my nose. And naturally, I wanted to deal with it. I had tissues, I had my hands, and, you know, I kind of dealt with it in the way that one would. And the end result was absolutely disgusting. I mean, life-changingly disgusting, because I think it was like 5 or 6 of us. Carrie Byron was at that dinner, at that experiment. And after we'd been eating for like an hour, they shut off the lights and we turned on the black light, and everything at the table was covered with fluorescing fluid. Like, yeah, it was sickening. Except for Carrie Byron. Carrie didn't have any on her. Carrie was already a germaphobe. Carrie's the one I am most confident will make it out of COVID without any hitches. Yeah, she's like, the force is strong with this one. And when COVID lockdown first happened, I reached out to Discovery and said, we should put this up. You guys should put up the flu episode. And they did, like, the next day. They put it up. And look, I have no idea what kind of ultimate effect them putting up that video at the beginning of COVID had. I don't have any numbers on that. I don't have any figures on that. But it was, I was delighted to be able to highlight something we made many years ago that helped people understand the situation we are currently in. And a lot of people wrote to me on Twitter and through various social media to say that episode really helped them. But again, that's all anecdotal. So I'm not proclaiming that, like, we achieved some huge change in the world because of something we did, because I can't really know that. It's every piece of information I have is anecdotal, and as we all know, the plural of anecdote is not evidence. Sure. But it made me very proud of the show all of us worked so hard on for so many years, to be able to have a practical thing to share with the world between us, the hosts, and Discovery Channel, to hopefully make things just a little bit clearer. And that's all science really is. It's just the goal to make things a little bit clearer. Sometimes you can make things a lot clearer, but that's rare. It's more often that you're making some tiny little thing just a little bit better understood. And that's enough. It feels really good. Thank you so much for that awesome question. I will continue to answer Mythbusters questions here as long as you guys have them. And the questions are awesome, so thank you. I'll see you guys next time.